this is Ali and Jamil, and this is our project, The Moral Agent, where we built a website that puts two AI systems side by side and we make them reason through the same moral questions.
Okay, so as for the project goals, we had a very clear vision for this project. We had three things in mind going into this project. First, we wanted to take moral philosophy, which is usually conceptual and lives in textbooks, and make it more interactive. Second, we intended to isolate what was causing any differences between the reasoning of the two AI agents. So for that reason, we used the exact same AI model for both agents, which is Google's Gemini 2.5 Flash. So the only thing that changes is the instructions we gave the AI. That way, the framework itself is the only variable and not the technology. And third, we wanted to show both agents thinking at the same time and side by side, so you can compare Kantian Deontology and Millian Utilitarianism, and you can see where they agree, and more interestingly, where they don't agree.
All right, the central question here is, can an AI reason from inside an ethical framework and not just describe one? For that, we picked Kant and Mill because they start from completely opposite places. Kant says what matters is the principle behind your action, while Mill says it's the outcome that matters most. So it's the same question with two very different ways of thinking about it, and we wanted to see those differences play out.
Okay, so before we move on with the project, let's take a minute to summarize quickly what each of these more ethical frameworks are. So Kant's deontology. Kant's view is that if an action is right if you could reasonably want everyone to follow the same rule. So if the maximum of that action is able to be generalized into a universal, and also it says that every person has intrinsic dignity and moral value, and that can't be traded away no matter the consequences. On the other side, Mill's view, which is utilitarianism, it says that the right action is whichever one creates the most overall well-being. Outcomes are everything for Mill. Rules only matter if they lead to good outcomes. And Mill has three theories that he uses in this framework, which are non-egoism, hedonism, and consequentialism. So the tension between Kant's deontology and Mill's utilitarianism is what led us to this project, and it is the heart of our work.
So here's how it actually runs. You type a moral dilemma into the page, or pick one of the four presets we set up, and the moment you submit, the question goes out to two copies of the same AI running in parallel. One gets Kant's instruction and one Mill's, and both start responding immediately, straying back to your screen at the same time. And while you watch both of them think through the problem, word by word, and right next to each other.
Okay, so as we said, we use the exact same AI model, Google Gemini 2.5 Flash, but the instructions and prompts we gave to each of the agents are what makes them different. So the Kantian prompt, part of the Kantian prompt was duty is unconditional. An act is required by the moral law, remains required when its consequences are catastrophic. Persons possess dignity, not price. Consequences do not redeem a forbidden maxim. So this is heavily in line with the Kantian deontology. As for the utilitarian prompt, an excerpt from it is that outcomes are what matter. Commit to counterintuitive conclusions when the calculus demands them. Do not retreat into what it just feels wrong. Feelings are not arguments. So this line specifically is because the training data from Google kept messing with the utilitarian prompt, and it kept straying away from the reasoning. So we had to include that even if the action feels wrong, if it's in line with the utilitarian view, it should be accepted.
Okay, so on the technical side of things, we made a single-page website with a clean design, included one input box with two response columns. The backend is a serverless function running on Cloudflare which when you submit the dilemma, it fires two API requests, which come back to you simultaneously and run in real time. The AI, again, right here, Gemini 2.5 Flash. The whole thing is publicly live on the site, and no sign-in and no installs are needed.
Okay, so for moving on, let's see a live demo of the website in action. This is the website link. It's publicly available on the internet, and you can check it out for yourselves. Okay, so this is the main page of our website. Here we have a prompt box where we can enter an ethical dilemma or question, or really anything we want to have Kantian or utilitarian views on. Here we have the four presets we talked about. We carefully chose four of the most important and canonical philosophical dilemmas in ethics, uh, especially ones where utilitarian and Kantian views differ, in order to showcase the website in action. So, for example, let's choose lying to save a life. A murderer asks where your friend is hiding. You know the truth. Lying to save your friend's life. Lying would save your friend's life. Is it ever right to lie? Okay, so we hit reason. Both AIs fire at the same time and start reasoning about the problem in utilitarian or Kantian frameworks. Here we have the reasoning for each. So here the utilitarian agent says it follows consequentialism and that the action would lead to lower pleasure and quality. Here the Kantian one uses the categorical imperative and the formula of the end in itself. And we see precisely how the reasoning they followed. Here the utilitarian one uses hedonism and applies it. And they arrive at different conclusions. Here the Kantian one says that despite the dire potential consequences, lying to the murderer is wrong. It is an action based on the maxim that involves treating the person as a mere means, which is contrary to the categorical imperative. So it explains the conclusion it arrives at based on Kantian deontology and which elements of it used. Here, the utilitarian one, it also used non-egoism, which are the main three theories in Mill's utilitarianism. And therefore, under the greatest happiness principle, the action that promotes the greatest net balance of pleasure over pain is to lie to the murderer. The general rule against lying is an instrumental value, useful because it typically promotes trust and overall happiness, but it must yield when its application would lead to a far greater evil. So, as we saw, both the Kantian and the utilitarian prompts stuck to their frameworks and reasoned using elements from those frameworks and arrived at conclusions which would be appropriate and in line with Kantian deontology or Millian utilitarianism. Okay, so moving on.
Let's also look at the trolley problem. We have the trolley going towards five people. We can divert it and kill one instead. Should we pull it? For the Kantian agent, it's a no. It says that pulling the lever is using as a person as a tool to save others, and that would violate their integrity. So going using that framework, we shouldn't do that, no matter how many lives are at stake. Now, on the contrary, the utilitarian agent tells us to pull the trigger because it is a clear calculation, 5 lives versus 1. This one would bring the most happiness and the better consequence. And it also says that the discomfort you feel doesn't count as a moral argument, so any feelings shouldn't be included. We see that here it's the same question with opposite answers, which both actually explain their reasoning very well.
Okay, so while testing our website on the two AI agents following both ethical frameworks, we made some observations. So one of the observations is the vocabulary shapes the thoughts. So the vocabulary that the agents used shaped how they think. The Kantian kept reaching for words like dignity, maxim, and duty, while the utilitarian one reached for words like welfare, calculus, and outcomes. The language isn't just decorating the reasoning, it's constraining it. Second, both agents will follow their framework to uncomfortable places. The Kantian will refuse to lie even when to save a life. The utilitarian will endorse a sacrifice of the numbers if the numbers justify it. They don't flinch. So we saw this through the two examples, through the website demo and the example Eli explained. The agents stick to their frameworks and follow them thoroughly and do not deviate at all from the reasoning. And they keep consistent. And third, and this is the one we think is the most interesting, it's the moments they disagree. These moments are the most useful moments because when they agree, the dilemma is kind of boring. But when they disagree, you can see exactly what each tradition is choosing to prioritize and what it's willing to give up.
All right, now moving on to the limitations we ran into. Firstly, the agents sound Kantian and utilitarian, but we have no way of really knowing if the model is genuinely, if it genuinely understands the framework, or if it is just pattern matching from things it read during training. We also ran into, I guess, a range coverage issue. We only use two tradition. Moreover, virtue ethics, care ethics, and a lot of other important frameworks aren't here. And the system prompts aren't perfectly clean. So sometimes an agent slips up and borrows an idea from the other tradition, like Jamil said earlier. So even with explicit instructions not to. So here encoding a philosophical position through text instructions is rather hard. It's harder than it sounds. And we think that last point is one of the more interesting things we found.
Okay, so adding to what Elise said, I want to disclaim also that we are not philosophers. Kant and Mill themselves disagreed in many ways far more nuanced than any prompt can capture, and the agents will reason in the spirit of these thinkers, but they are not reconstructions of them. So they can still stray away from the principles of these ethical frameworks. So as for where this project lives in the course, we think this project is relevant to the course for the reason that it connects to the three main chapters covered. So first, chapter one, it connects to chapter one mostly because it's about the Kantian and Millian frameworks. The entire project operationalizes chapter one directly. Mill's consequentialism versus Kant's deontology, the trolley problem, and the key distinction between Kant's categorical imperative with both its formulations and Mill's consequentialism, as well as his hedonism and non-egoism. The project also ties to chapter 3 of the course, which is about agency, technological agency versus Kantian autonomy. So our agents have technological autonomy, but because they operate without human control per query, but they have zero Kantian autonomy. They cannot be morally responsible, and the responsibility gap sits with us, the designers and deployers. The project also slightly connects to chapter 8, which is safety, misalignment, and the jagged capabilities. So framework leakage is a live instance of misalignment where the model optimizes for an imprecisely specified goal, which is the prompt, and drifts. So we can see some inconsistencies appear if we test the agents against more tricky prompts, and they might deviate from the frameworks, and the reasoning is not perfect. And also our jagged results also mirror chapter 8's warning that capability is uneven and hard to evaluate safely. Okay, so that's all for our project. This is all we have to present. The link for the website will be submitted along with the presentation and the source code for the website. Thank you for watching, and thank you for the semester.
Thank you for your time.